Well, hello, and welcome to USITT's Follow-Up Fridays, where is the series we created so we can reconnect with our exhibitors who joined us for Virtual Anywhere 2021. Today, we'd like to welcome Margaret Messig. Margaret Messig with Costume Inventory Resources is here today to discuss her software, her inventory software of Use Your Theater Inventory to plan, rent, and connect. Welcome, Margaret.
Thanks, Christine. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So I'll take us right into your PowerPoint if you want, and you can take it away.
All right. As Christine says, I'm with Costume Inventory Resources. I created the Theater Inventory Database over 10 years ago to help theater communities inventory their costumes, and then it has grown from that to props, sets, wigs, patterns, lighting equipment, sound equipment, and just about everything you have in your theater. And a lot of people are hesitant to start an inventory project because it is a lot of work. But what we like to tell them is that it's really, really an essential tool for your theater to help you plan, rent, and connect with other people. Whoops, we're not going anywhere here. There we go. Your theater is a treasure trove of costumes and wigs and jewelry and props and set pieces. And most of these things have been very carefully created and stored for years or longer. And no one, no matter how brilliant and dedicated they are, can remember where everything is and where it might be stored. That's where your inventory database comes in to help. Once you have created your inventory of your collection, you can use that to plan for future productions, rent items to other theaters or universities, and hopefully make much needed revenue, and then connect with designers to share ideas or let them know what you have. So what is an inventory database? Inventory database is a software application written specifically to catalog hundreds or thousands of objects so that the list can be searched, reports can be printed, and more. So with a database, you can have a data entry form like the one you see for that coat with lots of detailed information, a tag ID, pictures, and storage location information. The inventory software should allow you to search, to do a search on a group of items. Lots of different ways to search for things, lots of different ways to view the research results. Here we have a little pop-up of a photo gallery of a lot of telephones that we can look at. Once you have that search and you have those results, you can say, wow, this is what we have, and maybe I want to use this, or maybe I want to share this with someone else. You can also create an efficient rental system to rent items to other organizations so that you can have things move out to organizations and then hopefully get them all right back. You can charge rental fees, you can have discounts, you can have dry cleaning fees, you can do a lot of different things to keep track of the money part of the operation. Also, you can assign costume pieces, props and sets, wigs, and whatever to a production. So you can start working with a production report to see all the things that you plan to use so that you make sure you have them, they're in good condition, you know where they are when it's time to go. A database also should allow you to create an asset management report. An asset management report is where it'll list everything that you have, sum them all up, and tell you what the value of them is and what the replacement costs of them are. And that's very important for a lot of managers these days because, you know, rains come, roofs leak, floods happen, and that sort of thing, and we need to know what the value of your collection really is. So the last thing is you want to be able to share your data and photos with other designers or people who can't visit the shop. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. But again, your database has many, many tools to help you work. Now, when you have a database, that's great, but it's not the whole picture. You also need to have tags and labels to go in your costumes or attached to your props and sets or your equipment, to make them easy to find and look up and identify which is which. You also are going to want to have a barcode scanner to scan the barcode on the tag so you can quickly find a record, check it out, check it back in again, and go on. Okay, so just as a reminder of what your features a database should have, it should be able to easily enter records with multiple descriptive fields, measurements, storage location, costs, replacement costs, and at least one photo. Assign a unique identifier to each record, such as a tag ID that will match the tag or label that's attached to the item. Your database should allow you to search for records in multiple ways, because sometimes you want to search by costume type, or sometimes by time period, or sometimes by storage location. So the database needs to be flexible to help you get the results that you need. Your database should be able to print a variety of reports to either a printer or a PDF file, because we don't want to print everything out, and it's great to have it on a PDF, but the PDF can also be shared. It can be posted on your website. It can be emailed to other people. So there's a lot of uses for that. Photo reports can include photos or not, just as you wish for that particular need. You also need to have a way to export data to another format, to a PDF or a spreadsheet, so you can share with others. You want to be able to create production records and assign costumes, props, whatever to productions. You want to have a checkout, and you want to have an asset management report system. So those are the features that you want to look for in your database. Now, there are several inventory databases out there in the world. You can certainly do a web search for them, but as I'm the designer of the theater inventory database, this is the one I'm going to be showing you. So the steps that we're going to be looking at to create a successful database is, one, you have to enter your data. Now, that's a tremendous project. People think that they can enter, thousands of records in a week, and well, maybe they can, but sometimes it takes a little longer. So planning your data entry time is essential, because you want to create one record for each item, and you may have 24, 28, 30,000 records, 30,000 items in your warehouse. So you can plan that it's going to take some time. Then once you have done that, you want to be able to search for your data based on your criteria. You're going to assign your costume props to a production. You're going to be able to set up rental records, and we're going to be able to export data to share. So if we take a quick look at the theater inventory database, there's lots of different modules on the left and lots of different features on the right. The way I like to think about this is that the modules on the left are the groups of items you're going to inventory. So you're going to inventory individual costume pieces. The performance management allows you to actually link costume pieces together and to a performance. But props and sets, you're going to have individual ones of those. Then you have the option for patterns, wigs, jewelry, scripts, shop tools, and even an inventory owner option. So on the left, you're going to have a different module for all the different types of things you're going to be recording and putting in your database. On the right side of the menu, you have the features, productions, checkouts, performers, reports, asset management reports, and utilities. So you have sort of the data on the left and the working reports and things on the right. This is just another sort of a little more pop-up there to show you how this is sort of designed. Again, this one's on my website. You can take a look at it more carefully, because it's a lot of detail to sort of take in. So every time you work with a module, like the costume pieces, you're going to go to a menu, and it's going to have its own data entry form, a search feature. A special features for this one is sending costumes to the dry cleaner. You're going to have reports and then utilities. So the way the theater database is set up is that all the modules are very, very similar. So once you learn one, it's easy to move on to a second module or second type of item to work with. So in order to work well in terms of searching and producing reports and productions and rentals and all that, the data has to be entered first. And the more data you can enter per record, the better it's going to be. So for here on the costume piece screen, you want to make sure you have your unique tag ID. That's actually required. You can't create a record without it. You'll have name, description, costume type, lookups for costume type, color pattern, fabric, and so forth. There's a lot of different descriptive fields there which help you. So if you want to find a long sleeve coat, you can, make sure that you have your costume type entered and you have your sleeve type entered. If you want to do a search by storage location, make sure that you have your storage location entered. The more time you spend entering data in this data entry form, whether it's costumes or props or lighting equipment, whatever it is, the better your data is going to be, the more useful your database will be in the long term. You want to make sure you put in your measurements. You want to put in at least at least one photo. 2 would be better. You can have up to 6 photos. And it really is something to spend a lot of time with when you are doing your data entry. People call me all the time and saying, I can't search on things. When I go back to look at their data, well, they haven't entered the data in the fields they need to search on. So if the data's not there, you can't search on it. You can't share that data. You can't, make it available to people when they want to rent. So this is a really key point of your process here. Now, once your data is entered, like we've said before, you can assign it to a production. You can do checkouts and rentals. Here, you can also keep track of individuals who are part of your theater company as performers or staff. You can keep track of their measurements. You can keep track of their rental history. A lot of good information there. There's always reports, lots of reports to work with. And there are, utilities to do so that you can update your lookup tables, and there's always a user guide. Okay, I see a quick question pop up here. Can data be ported over from an Excel spreadsheet? The answer is yes. I'd be happy to import it for you if you have it in a spreadsheet. You can send it to me and we can talk about how it can be imported, and it will save you a lot of time if you've already got it there. It's something I do on a pretty regular basis, so feel free to contact me for that. All right, now a production record is one that allows you to create a production. So we're going to have The Music Man. This is sort of an old one, says for 2015. Within that production record, I can create a list of roles. I can then assign performers and ensembles to a role. I can assign props and sets to a role, to the production, and so forth. Once I have that data set up, I can create reports by role, reports by performer, and a lot of different listings of ways to look at things, sometimes with all the costumes listed, sometimes with photos, sometimes with not. It's up to you. But once you create a performance record, that data is then stored so that you can go back to it in the future and look and say, okay, what did we do for this back then? Or I've had people create, a performance record for Sound of Music, and they list all of the nun costumes. Well, now when it's time to do Sister Act, they can go back to that production and say, okay, this is the costumes we used for that. Where are they? Let's pull them out, see if they'll work for this production. So it's very, very helpful to help you at the time of the production, but it's also helpful in the future when you're planning other productions. Now, one thing I've sort of skipped over a little bit here is the role of an ensemble. And I don't have a picture of it right here, but I can try and explain it, and then we can look at it a little bit more later. When you have a production, you have roles. So here we have the Music Man, and we have Harold Hill. Well, Harold Hill that character has several different sets of clothing to wear during the production. So in the train scene in Act 1, he's going to have one shirt, jacket, pants, tie, hat, you know, group of costume pieces to wear. But in the ending scene, you know, where they're all dressed up in their music band uniforms, he's going to have a totally different costume. Okay, and each costume, each look is made up of multiple pieces. Well, to know which piece goes with what and which act or scene, you create an ensemble record. An ensemble record allows you to have, you know, the name Harold Hill, this is the train scene, and link all the individual costume pieces that are part of that ensemble. Let me just see if I can. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is sharing or not. Let's see if I can share this screen.
I see your PowerPoint. We're not seeing a different screen yet.
Okay, so hang on here, sorry.
Quite all right.
I don't want to stop sharing.
You could. We could bring it right up again, or, you know, if you're opening it in another tab, maybe click on that tab.
I'm just trying to figure out why it won't share the screen that's up.
Nope, we have a black screen.
Now we have a black screen. Okay,
Yes.
well, that's not very helpful.
No, not when you're talking about costumes. Well, inventory. Well, thanks for joining us today, folks. I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Christine Churcher. I'm the Director of Education and Training, and we hope to bring you these sessions every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, throughout the summer. We have your PowerPoint back up, Margaret.
I know, that's nice. Well, we'll come back to the ensembles here in a minute. We'll just come back to that. But the idea is that productions are complicated. There's a lot of details in a production, and if you have the data in your database, you can still create a very complex production record that will be very helpful to you in terms of planning for this particular production and looking back on it from, you know, years in the future. So we'll come back to productions in a few minutes. Okay. So again, this is just sort of saying what we talked about before, how to use the database to plan for a production. For costumes, you're going to want to do a search by time period and costume type to see what you have. For production, your principals are probably going to be wearing, you know, custom made for this particular production outfits. But for the townspeople, the extras, the chorus, whatever, you're going to want to pull from your warehouse. So what do you pull? Well, you've got to do a search. Let's see what you have for that time period or that costume type or what has been used in the past. So that's the first thing to do. For your props and sets, you're going to also be looking for time period, item type, things that will work for that production. one thing to note is sometimes for smaller production companies, they find, they weren't realizing it necessarily, that they were using the same costume pieces over and over again for some of their extras, because sometimes they have different designers for each show and they hadn't been aware of that. Being able to go back and look at your production, you can see that, oh, this townsperson is wearing that exact same skirt, same apron, same top, and maybe we don't want to do that this time. Maybe we want to use something else. So looking at that, being able to do a search and check things out will be helpful. So from the results page from your search screens, you can look at your photos, print a photo gallery, do a list of items by tag ID. Again, you can print it, you can PDF it, you can share it with people. You can, discuss it online to say, these are things we're thinking of. What do you like? What do you don't like? So it's very, very informative and can save a lot of time. Once you have your costumes and props sort of in a general list of sort of things to consider, you'll create your production record. And you can add individual costume pieces and props to that production, or you can create an ensemble record and then assign that to a role in the production. All right. Now, rentals are something that people really want to talk about a lot because they're always looking for ways to increase their revenue, have their stock used so it doesn't just sit on a hanger for decades. It's best if a costume is pulled out, used, cleaned, and checked for flaws and all that. So to keep the whole collection going. So how do you rent? How do you create a rental? Well, of course, obviously, you have to have your costume pieces or your props and sets entered into your database. Then the steps are, you're going to create a record for an individual or for a organization. So here we have Lewistown High School. There's someone that maybe will rent from you. You'll create a record for them so that you can always go back and see everything that they have rented over time. Because once you set up a rental business, you'll have repeat customers, people who will come back time and time again for their new productions. And other times you'll have someone who'll rent once and never come back. But you're going to create a record for that organization so you can and individual, so you can always track it. Then you're going to create an actual rental record. You'll select that individual or organization. You'll enter a return due date so that everyone is clear on when these things are expected back. And then you'll see at the middle-ish part of the rental screen there, you're going to have tabs for checking out costume pieces, ensembles, wigs, jewelry, props, and sets, whatever particular items you have in your database. And this is where the barcode scanner comes in handy, because you can bring a rack of costumes or a cart full of props and set pieces up, and as you've created this record, you just scan each item and it adds itself to the list of the items checked out. Once that is done, all of the rental fees that you have entered for those items will be totaled up, so that you have a balance due for that particular rental. There's lots of different features on that rental screen. You can provide a discount. Maybe for a nonprofit, you give them a 50% discount or 100% discount. That can be entered in there. If someone is checking things out for an extended period of time, you can add a multiplier so that you can say, well, our normal rental fee is $10 for this item for a 2-week rental, but you want it for 6 weeks. So we're going to multiply that rental fee by 2 or by 3 or whatever. So that gives you some flexibility there. You can add in fitting fees. You can add in dry cleaning fees, sales tax, everything all adds up. And then you'll get a final number there, and you can then print an invoice or receipt or whatever you want to call it. You can go in and change the name within the database, and it will List who has taken this out, what their contact information is, a list of every single item that they have checked out, and a total for all of the fees that you expect to collect from them. You can, again, print that to paper, hand it to them, maybe have them sign a copy that you keep, or send them a PDF. It's up to you. So items go out, and then hopefully before the due date comes due, the items come back, and you can go to a quick check-in screen and again scan each item that comes back, and it will then check them in with that date, and then you can easily see what's still left out. Did they forget to bring back a pair of gloves? Did they forget to bring back a cup? That'll pop right up. You can talk to them about it right at that moment, rather than 3 months later saying, oh, what happened to that thing? Where did it go? So it's a much more efficient way to manage your rentals. There's a lot of reports you can run to see, summaries of how many checkouts you've done, how, what's still out, what's due back soon. All those kinds of reports are available. I will want to talk about setting up a rental program, though. A lot of people think that they can do that to just create money, which is true, but it takes time. It takes a rental clerk to help check, to call for people to call in and say, I'm looking for everything you have from the Music Man or from Guys and Dolls, or I want, a number of these different items to check out. Well, somebody has to go pull those from the rack. Generally, you don't want your customers going through your warehouse, so one of your staff people has to do that. Someone has to meet with a customer, do the checkout, help them, figure out how they're going to get that out of your warehouse, whether it's, they're taking it to their truck, whether they're boxing it up and you're shipping it FedEx, whatever. So the clerk has to have, some time to do that. Then, of course, when everything comes back, it'd be wonderful if everything was in perfect condition and hung up nicely on a rack and all that. But generally, it comes back not very organized. Sometimes it's a pile of dirty laundry, and you need to go through it and check them in, check to see if it needs to be cleaned or repaired, or if someone has done an alteration they weren't supposed to do, and you need to work with that. So it takes time. So when you set up a rental program, you have to realize that someone has to be assigned to be that rental clerk. They have to have time to do it. And of course, the amount of money you make from your rental needs to at least cover that rental clerk's, payroll, and, any other additional supplies or things that you need, extra racks, FedEx, trips to FedEx and that sort of thing. So rental programs are great, but you have to go in with your eyes open that it's going to, be a significant project for your organization. All right, are there any questions at this point?
No questions up there right now, Margaret.
Okay. All right, so reporting. Reporting is really important for any database because you want to know what you have. You want to know how much has been entered. You want to know, where things are located. So in the theater database, there are lots and lots of reports options for you. You can, list all your costumes by costume type. You can see what's available now, as in it's not been rented. List of costume pieces by current location, things that need repairs, things that have been discarded, lots and lots of choices. So once you start entering your data, it's a very good idea to become familiar with the reports that are out there so you can sort of keep track of what you have done, and where things are, and if there's something that's missing, you want to make sure you know about it. All right, now asset management reports is something I added for a couple of production managers and tech directors that needed to know what they had, what they had in terms of pieces, what they had in terms of costs, what the replacement cost would be if the roof fell in, all that sort of thing. So these are just there's a summary report that you can print that'll show everything. And then there are individual reports by module to show you summary of all items by type, which is the sample you see on the screen. Or you could have a list of everything, or you could have a summary by storage location. Let's say you have 3 buildings with costume pieces in it, and one of them gets flooded or has smoke damage. Well, you can run a report by storage location and say, okay, we had 18,000 costumes in that location. They're all damaged. This was the total value of those costumes in that location. And that gives you a starting point to work with the insurance company and then to start planning on how to recover things. I have shown these reports to my insurance agent just to sort of talk to him about what's important. And he just was like, oh my gosh, if I had this kind of information, it would make my job so much easier. My customers would get so much more money back on their claims because they have it documented. You know, to walk into a damaged warehouse and see a lot of wet or damaged clothing is pretty depressing. And you think, oh, this isn't worth anything. You're only going to give them $1 per piece. Well, in fact, they should be much more, you know, valued. But unless you have it documented, you're not going to get reimbursement on your claim. So I really try and emphasize to people, this is important to enter that data, even if it's just a wild guess. You know, if you say, okay, I want to do a replacement cost of $20 per pair of pants and $15 per shirt. That's probably an underestimate for a lot of things, but it's a good place to start. And obviously your important costumes, your principals costumes, the things that are custom made for your leads, they're going to be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and that needs to be recorded. So the asset management reports helps you keep on track of things. Now, let's talk about sharing. Everyone wants to share their database on the web. I get calls about this every week. And there's a lot of good things to having a database on the web so that your visitors can see what you have. There's a lot of not so good things about putting your database on the web. This handout has a lot of detail. I'm sure you can't quite read it on the screen, but it is available on my website, a couple different places. So certainly take a look at it there if this is something you want to talk about. So let's talk about web access. Why do you want to do it? And the little yellow box on the left, it says, why do you want to do this? Well, one, you want to allow visitors to see your costumes, your props and sets for possible rentals or collaboration with designers. If you're a university and you're doing projects, students are doing projects, if they could go in and select a bunch of things and create a list of costumes or props to use for a project, that's great. You don't have 30 students swarming through your collection. If they could do it online, that would be a good thing. Why would they do it? Why would they not come to your shop? Well, COVID-19 restrictions. As much as we all like to think it's over, I think we're gonna have restrictions for quite a while. As we all know, costume warehouses are very crowded places, and so you want to make sure you don't have a lot of people coming in and out. Another reason, people with limited mobility. If you've got racks that are 2 or 3 stories, 2 or 3 racks high in your warehouse, people with limited mobility can't get up there. Even if they wanted to see something, they're going to have to, get help. Maybe you're only open to the public a few hours a week. So you've got reduced hours, so people can't get in during those times, or people are just too far away. So those are good reasons to want to have your database available online. So what does, well, okay, so then let's look over to the big green box and think about things to consider for that online database. Before you build an online database to showcase things, let's think about these things. Number one, legal issues. Nobody wants to talk about legal issues until they've had a problem. But it's very, very important to think about. For one thing, I mean, your data is one thing to have on the website, and that's not terribly well, it's a good thing to have your data on there, but it's not helpful enough for people. They need to see pictures. Well, all photos have to have release forms if a person is pictured in the photo, or a costume or prop has been designed or created by someone who deserves credit. Now, a lot of times you have costumes or props in your collection that have been designed by people 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you don't know who did it, and you think, okay, that's not a problem. But you'll be amazed. Someone can come back and say, oh, I saw my dress on your website and I wasn't given credit for it. And so you need to have release forms set up for all of these photos that go on the website. You say, well, I've got 25,000 costume pieces. I can't get a release for every one. Well, I know it's a lot of trouble, but it only takes one designer who sues you to make everything really, really difficult. People do lawsuits. People do make a lot of noise. So you have to be careful. I've even heard of people who are showing people on stage in a costume. Well, not only do you have the costume, not only do you have the performer, you have the set pieces in the background. You even have the lighting director. You have this, the scenic designer. All of those people could have an interest in that picture being shown without their credit. So that's something to really, really think about. Also, websites have a lot of costs. All websites have at least monthly or yearly costs. Hosting a database application with photos can be as little as $100 per month, but often that time is per user, or up to $10,000 a year. So you have to get some very realistic cost estimates before you start on this process. And people will say, oh, I can get this down to $50 a month. That's only $600 a year. But then suddenly it's not that. It's going to be more, or there's extra costs added on. So cost is something to really, really think about. Website design. Websites with databases are very complex to create. I can tell you that because I've tried. And there's a lot of detail to it. If you have a few hundred costume pieces in your database, speed won't be an issue. But a web database with thousands of pieces can be and thousands of photos can be very slow to open and display and do searches. And if you have a wonderful website, but it's so slow, people get impatient and tired of waiting, they're going to just go somewhere else. Also, your site has to be designed so photos can't be copied easily. You don't want someone to do a right mouse click on a photo on the website. We've all done it, but you want to think about your database. You don't want them to be able to do a quick download of that photo from your site. So there's ways to get around that, but again, it takes a good website designer to do that. Also, your web version of the database has to be read-only. So obviously you don't want visitors going in and making modifications to your data. Okay, so website design is important, but also time. You need a lot of different information on that costume piece record to make it interesting or valuable to a potential renter or a designer. So you need to have all size measurements recorded. you need to have good pictures, good lighting, either having the dress or item on a dress form or a costume or a prop piece, you know, in good lighting so that people can see it, they can see the size of it. It takes a lot of time. You can spend 15 to 20 minutes per garment to take a couple of good photos if you're putting it on a dress form. And if you take that 15 minutes and multiply it by 10,000 costume pieces, you suddenly see that it's a huge amount of time. Now, that's having a photo on your internal company database that only you see, or there's a limited number of people that see. You can get away with a picture that may be not so great. But when you're putting it out on the web and saying, here, we want to, you're charging you lots of money to rent, to rent these photos, to rent these costumes, then suddenly your photos have to, you know, be of very, very good quality. Then you have to set up time for your shop manager to make business decisions, to decide what fields to show visitors and what functions you want them to have. You may want to have visitors see the rental fee and the replacement cost for a costume or a prop, but you don't you don't want to see the actual cost, or you don't want to show who rented it before. You don't want to show necessarily all the alterations and repairs that have been done for it. You don't really want to show them the storage location where it is in your warehouse. So when you start thinking about, gee, what do I want people to see? That's different than what data you want to actually enter and store in your database. So again, a lot of time, a lot of decisions have to go into that. And then you need a lot of technical know-how. You need to have a web manager who can update your web database with as new items come in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you also have to make sure that everything is up to date, everything is correct. Someone has to handle visitor questions, website issues, and so forth. So creating an online database of your collection is valuable, but it's also a very expensive and time-consuming project. So what can the theater and costume inventory database offer you now? Well, there's 3 ways you can share your collection with other people. One is you can allow them remote access using Google Remote or some other screen sharing software. This would be like, you know, you would set up an appointment, someone could look at things, they could access the database and see what is there. Not a lot of universities and schools allow that sort of thing now, but it's something to consider. So the second thing is you can print reports and catalogs with photos to PDF files and publish them on the web. A lot of times that's very helpful because you could say, okay, here's all the costume pieces we have for Sound of Music. Here's all the costume pieces we have for Beauty and the Beast. And that PDF file of that catalog can be, you know, very helpful, not hard to produce, and limited in terms of the fields that they show, just what you want people to see. Then the third option that we have is a new option where you can export your data to a spreadsheet and then load it into your existing website. Now, this takes a little more technical skill on your part and maybe a little bit on your visitor's part, because they will need to have a spreadsheet program on their computer. And there's a way to export your data with your photos to a spreadsheet, but that requires the user to have Microsoft Excel. You still need to look at your online issues there in terms of, you know, are photos credited? You know, are the photos good and all that sort of thing, but it's an option. I have an example of that on my website, but here's just sort of an example. If we were sort of pretending that this here is your web page, you can export your data, one to a catalog, like all costumes by costume type, and you can have a catalog to show, PDF file to show all the costumes that you have, or you could set up a catalog by production, and post that to your website. They could open it up and take a look at it. Or you can do this download to Excel, where you can create a record that has limited fields and has the option to use your mouse to highlight a cell there, and it will post the first photo of the record. So there's lots of ways to share your data with potential customers and designers. It just takes sometimes a little creativity to think about how you want to do it and what's the best option for your theater or organization. Okay, so stepping away from the theater inventory database, I just wanted to show you a little bit that we also have the equipment inventory database for lighting equipment, sound, tools and equipment, rigging equipment, stage properties, and consoles. So again, very similar format to the theater database. You can create a fixture record or a sound equipment record or a rigging motor record and list the information that's there, including costs, rental fees, storage location, asset management numbers, serial numbers, all that sort of thing. And then you have the option to assign to a production, do rentals, do reports, and utilities and asset management reports. Okay, so this is just sort of a summary here. So once your data is entered, you can put it to work, create lists from search results, assign things to productions, rent items, share your data with collaborators, and run reports to summarize the value of your collection and know where everything is. People often tell me it's like, oh my gosh, we never knew where everything was until we put it in the database and we created these specific storage locations. And now I can, send a student over to find something very easily, saying, go to this location, go to this rack, and you should be able to find it. It saves enormous amounts of time. Okay, so when you're choosing your database company, make sure that they provide support. We at Custom Inventory Resources provide a lot of support by phone, by email. We do remote support sessions to log into your computer to help you with your database. We have a support page. We have lots of free handouts for installation, how to manage photos, and all that sort of thing. We have an online user guide, and we have a set of tutorials. So everything that you need is hopefully there, and if not, you can certainly contact us, and we can work to add more information for you. So to wrap up, well, don't want you to forget that our webpage is at costumeinventory.com, and we have a virtual booth on our webpage. We made up since we weren't able to go to USITT last year or this year. So we have a booth there to talk about, looking at a production and seeing all the things that we offer. All of our databases are available for a free 30-day trial. You need to have Windows and Microsoft Access, but we can help you with that if you have questions. We love to send free samples of our tags and labels. So certainly just drop a line to us and tell us where to mail them and what to print, and we'll be happy to do that. We also offer a 10% discount for our USITT customers. Please use this code if you go online to our web store to do that, or just remind us when you call and want to talk to us about that, and we'll make sure that's applied. So call or email us with any questions, and we'll be happy to help you out. So if there's any questions now, I will be happy to help. I see some questions coming up. There's a question that says, where is the database hosted, in the cloud or on a computer? The database is hosted on it's a Microsoft Access database, and it works in Windows. If you have a Mac, you can put up a Windows partition and run it that way, but most people choose to do it on a PC. It can be on a single computer, or it can be installed on a network. If you have a network in your organization, the school, college, theater, whatever, we can set it up to have the database on the network so it can be shared by multiple workstations. The theater database is licensed to the organization, so there's no additional fees for putting it on multiple workstations. So it's a one-time cost. I didn't mention that. The databases have a one-time cost. There's no monthly or yearly fees. So, any other questions?
No questions yet, but we'll give folks a couple of seconds here and there to type some in case they come up with some. For now, I will just explain that, we have these, if you look at the scrolling ticker below at the USITT website address, so you can look to see what other conversations and webinars we offer weekly. I'll just show my screen for a second, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for questions. At this address, so you'll find this page, our events page. Next week, we have Writing for TD&T. That's hosted by our Northwest Regional Section, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We have another community conversation coming up next week, LGBTQ. Stage Drapery and Fire Code is next week's follow-up Friday's conversation. And then we go on from there. There's quite a few offerings we already have on the books from our partners and affiliates. And we do have a ground-rigging class in July that's actually worth ETCP credits. So Margaret, it will give people just a couple of more seconds to put in a question if they have it. You have been a long time exhibitor with USITT. Do you know how long it's been?
I think my first one was 2012, and down in Long Beach, whatever year Long Beach was, that was my first one, and I've been there ever since, obviously, except for last year and this year. But this year I was there at had a virtual booth, so I'm looking forward to next year. It's in Baltimore.
It is. It's in Baltimore, March 2nd through 5th. And yep, right there. Throw it up on the line right there as a banner. So you can, we don't have a lot of information on Baltimore yet, but we're in the throes of preparing everything, or deciding what next year's going to look like, being our first in-person in 3 years. I don't see any questions coming up, Margaret, so maybe we'll just wrap up for today. We are looking forward to seeing you in Baltimore next March. Anybody who has any questions for me can contact me directly. My first name, Christine, CHRISTINE, at usitt.org. Always feel free to use the website to contact us with questions or give us a call. Margaret, I can't thank you enough for bringing us this conversation today. And I look forward to hosting you in the future. Maybe in the fall, we'll do kind of a preview of what we're planning for March. And we'll see you again real soon.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a really glorious weekend. It's beautiful weather here in upstate New York. Take care of yourselves until we see you next time.
Okay,
Thanks, folks.
great. Thanks. Bye.